Hi, everybody. It is week 5, and this week we are going to be defining genres. Excuse me for not showing my face on this video. I'm actually recording this on a Sunday morning before our new week begins, and my hair is an absolute mess. I'll be sharing my screen in a minute once I open up my slideshow, but I just wanted to make some introductory comments as it regards to defining genres. So I know through your many years of schooling, many years of writing classes, that you understand genre in a particular way. Mostly we think of genre in kind of literary terms, right? Or in movie terms. So we have fiction, nonfiction, poetry, drama, a variety of different types of literary genres. But now I want you to expand your definition of genre. Think of genre as being kind of the types of text that have recognizable names, because those are the types of writing that recur over and over again in order to facilitate a regularly occurring function in life. So you can think of things like resumes, wedding invites, birthday cards, parking tickets, textbooks, novels, emails, eulogies, Instagram posts, Snapchats. The list goes on, right? They can be both formal and informal types of writing. And these are all the types of writing that help us to participate in regularly recurring events that happen again and again. So if a certain type of writing happens repeatedly, right, it prompts writers to need to respond again and again. For example, the need to apply for a job, then there are certain kinds of writing that come into existence to respond to that recurring situation. So in this example, if you're applying for a job, you're going to need a certain type of writing. One will be a resume, another will be a cover letter, right? If you're going into some kind of academic field, then you might have what's called the CV, the curricula vitae, right? And that is really you can think of that as kind of a resume that's on, just forgot the word, on steroids, right? A resume on steroids, the CV, right? Because it's much longer, typically several pages, that kind of encapsulates what you've done in your life to get into a certain field. So we have a couple of readings this week, and here is where I'm going to share my screen, if I can find the button. Just a second here. And so we have a set of slides here where we are working to define genre. And we have a couple of readings this week that help you to wrap your mind around this idea of genre, but also about this concept of what's called Lexis. And Lexis is going to become really important in the coming weeks and throughout the rest of the semester as we start to talk about discourse communities. So you have a couple of concepts that are going to be introduced to you. So the first reading is one that's online, Genre and Lexis by Christian Silva, Maxwell Kazuski, and Alexa Klein. So there are a few things here. They propose what's called a new conception of genre, and they cite Carolyn Miller. You might remember Miller being referred to in last week's lecture, where genre matters. And Miller defines genre as, quote, a typified response to a recurring situation. So I want you to start getting used to this idea that genres are not static, but flexible according to a particular rhetorical need or rhetorical situation. And a quote here from Kress and Reed: genres are dynamic, responding to the dynamics of other parts of social systems. Hence, genres change historically. Hence, new genres emerge. The connection to social spheres and groups has led some to tie genre to the constructions of a discourse community. So this will start to make sense as you read a little bit more. Oops. Sorry about that. I had to get something out of the oven. Anyway, this will start to make more sense to you as we go on in the coming weeks, as this this relationship between genre and discourse community. The other thing that they talk about in this article is Lexis. And you can think of Lexis, it's really the same as jargon, right? And Lexis refers to the specialized language of a particular group or discourse community that facilitates communication between its members. So you are probably most familiar with the Lexis we use in the academic discourse community, right? In academia, right, where we are right now, we're a group of people and we tend to use specialized language. And in English studies, we tend to use a certain type of jargon or certain type of Lexis that you might not see or hear in certain STEM fields, right? So the goal here, the goal of Lexis, is to help further conversation. So we have these ideas of genre being flexible, and they change according to certain needs and situations of a particular group. And that particular group uses a specialized language or Lexis or jargon to help ease communication between its members, right? So there is some key vocabulary here that they actually have in a box at the top of the page. We have old genre, which is categorization of content based on its style, tone, and format. And now we're switching over to this new idea of genre as being a kind of text that's always used in response to a specific recurring situation, right? So it's not just the literary stuff, but it's the everyday writing that we use. Typified response, that simply means a reused response to ease communication between the writer and the reader. And recurring situation, of course, is a scenario that occurs often enough to require that typified response to ease communication. So the recurring situation just happens over and over again, to the point that we need some kind of typified response, that some kind of particular genre to help ease communication between the writer or the communicator and the audience. Lexis, again, is terminology that's specific to a particular field, and it's mainly used by certain discourse communities. Again, we have that buzzword, and this is where this is John Swale's big field of study, right? Discourse communities that allows for more proper and efficient interpersonal communication. Jargon, again, is the same as Lexis. The second reading we have is Genre for Social Action, Transforming Worlds Through Genre Awareness and Action, and that's by Dr. Amy Devitt. So this was actually a chapter from a book called Genre and the Climate Debate. So that will explain why Devitt has kind of framed her examination in this chapter in a certain way and looks at climate science. This was published in 2020, but the main idea here for Devitt is that genre is not just about classification, it's about enabling communication. Again, we have that making communication easier for people that leads to action. So genre for Devitt here is all about making the communication as easy as possible, so that action can occur. And genre helps individuals and groups understand how to respond effectively in specific social situations. So, the idea here for a social situation is, would a piece of writing, would an academic text be effective, or would an informal video be more effective, depending on what the social or rhetorical situation is? So again, you can see how genre and the rhetorical situation and the writer or the communicator or rhetor, if we want to use the specific jargon of the writing studies field, and the audience, how all of those are intimately connected, right? The social situation, the rhetorical situation, the audience often will dictate the form that that communication takes, the genre that one will use to most effectively respond in a specific social situation. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So we have some key vocabulary in Devitt's work here. She talks about genre sets, and that is simply the collection of genres that certain individuals use to achieve a particular purpose. So you can think about a genre set, for example, something used by a student in a writing class. So that could include things like notes, reading responses, essays, outlines, so on and so forth. And then we have the much larger genre systems. And you can think of these as networks of genres used by groups of people to achieve their larger goals. So an example here, a genre system used to educate writing students in a university might include not only the genre set that's used by the students, but also a genre set used by the instructors. So things like lesson plans, slideshows, assignment sheets, syllabi, as well as the writing program. So things like learning outcomes, policies of the department, presentations on writing, instruction-related topics, emails that between the program coordinator and the the instructors. And then, of course, we also have the sets used by the larger universities. So transcripts, grade change forms, university policies, faculty contracts, all of those things comprise the larger genre system. So we have sets, which you can think of as kind of the smaller things that are related, right? The smaller forms of genres that are related for a particular purpose. And then we have the genre systems, which is kind of a much larger group of sets, all related to a specific purpose. And then, of course, the take-home points for both of these readings are that genres develop as repeated responses to recurring rhetorical situations. They also give writers and readers alike a sense of the expectations of a text. So you know that a college syllabus looks a certain way, right? And it's going to look very different than a blog post written by your bestie, right? Do young people even write blogs anymore? Probably not. But you get the idea here, right? It gives the reader a sense of the expectations of the text. And again, keep in mind, genres are not rigid formulas. They change over time and across different contexts as writers' and readers' purposes shifts. So it's not something that is set in stone. So hopefully this overview of this week's readings has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. Take care and have a fantastic week. Bye-bye.